Rain hammered against the windows of Olivia Morgan's tiny studio apartment in Chicago. She sat on her worn couch, staring at the stack of overdue bills scattered across her coffee table. The eviction notice lay on top, bold red letters screaming at her with a deadline just 3 days away. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Normally, she would ignore it, but something made her answer. Miss Morgan, my name's Thomas Wright. I represent Julian Ashford of Ashford Industries. Mr. Ashford would like to meet with you regarding a business proposal. Olivia's breath caught. Everyone knew the Ashford name. Julian Ashford was one of the youngest billionaires in the country, known for his sharp business mind and private personal life. I think you have the wrong person, Olivia said quietly. You are Olivia Morgan, the painter whose work was featured in the Chicago Art Review last month, correct? Yes, but I hardly think someone like Mr. Ashford needs my services. Mr. Ashford will explain everything. Can you meet him tomorrow at 10 a.m. at the Sterling Cafe on Michigan Avenue? Something in his voice told her this was legitimate, maybe even important. I'll be there, she heard herself say. An unexpected meeting, the Sterling Cafe, was everything Olivia expected. Elegant, expensive, and intimidating. She wore her best dress, a simple navy blue one she saved for gallery openings, and clutched her worn leather bag like a lifeline. Julian Ashford sat by the window. Even from across the room, his presence commanded attention. Dark hair, strong jawline, and eyes that seemed to see right through people. He stood when she approached, extending his hand. Miss Morgan, thank you for coming. His handshake was firm, but gentle. His voice was deep and somehow comforting despite the formal setting. Mr. Ashford, I have to admit I'm completely confused about why I'm here. A slight smile touched his lips. Please, call me Julian, and I appreciate your directness. He gestured to the chair across from him. I have an unusual proposition for you. Olivia sat, her heart pounding. Julian leaned forward, his fingers steepled on the table. I need someone to accompany me to my grandmother's 80th birthday celebration this weekend. Someone to pose as my girlfriend. Olivia blinked. Excuse me? I know how it sounds, but my grandmother has been pressuring me for years to settle down. She's not well, and this birthday might be one of her last major celebrations. I want to give her peace of mind. Why not ask someone you actually know? Someone from your world? Julian's expression darkened slightly. Everyone in my circle has ulterior motives. Money, connections, status. I need someone genuine. Someone who won't turn this into something it's not. And do you think I'm that person? I saw your interview in the art magazine. You spoke about painting with honesty, about capturing real human emotion. That's what I need. Honesty wrapped in a temporary arrangement. Olivia felt her practical side warring with her pride. What exactly would this involve? One weekend, Friday evening through Sunday morning. You'd stay at my grandmother's estate, attend the birthday gala on Saturday, and play the role of my girlfriend. In exchange, I'll pay you $40,000. The number hit her like a physical force. $40,000 would solve everything. Her rent, her debts, enough left over to focus on her art for months without worry. Why me specifically? She asked. Julian looked at her with an intensity that made her breath catch. Because when I saw your painting in that magazine, the one of the couple dancing in the rain, I felt something. It was real, raw. Exactly what I need my grandmother to see. A decision under pressure, Olivia's mind raced. This was insane. Completely insane. But the eviction notice flashed in her memory. The empty fridge at home. The canvas she couldn't afford to buy. There would be rules, she said carefully. Boundaries. This is purely professional. You'd have your own room. No expectations beyond public appearances as a couple. Hand-holding, maybe a kiss on the cheek for appearances. Nothing more? And after the weekend? You go back to your life. I go back to mine. The money is transferred to your account, and we part ways. Olivia studied his face, searching for deception. But all she saw was a man who looked tired, burdened by expectations she could only imagine. Can I think about it? She asked. You have until 6 p.m. today. I know it's not much time, but the event is this weekend. Olivia stood, her legs shaky. I'll call you by 6. As she walked away, she felt his eyes on her back. When she reached the door, she turned. He was still watching her. Something in his expression made her heart skip. The call that sealed their fate at 5:58 p.m. Sitting in her apartment with the eviction notice in one hand and her phone in the other, Olivia made the call. "Mr. Ashford? It's Olivia Morgan, Julian, please." "I'll do it. I'll be your girlfriend for the weekend." There was a pause, and when he spoke again, his voice was softer. "Thank you, Olivia. I promise you won't regret this." But as she hung up, Olivia wondered if she already did. Not because of fear, but because of the strange flutter in her chest. She thought of spending a weekend pretending to love a man she didn't know. What she didn't realize was that pretending would become the hardest part. Not because it was difficult, but because it would feel far too easy. Thomas called an hour later with details. A stylist would visit tomorrow. A car would pick her up Friday at 4 p.m. Everything was arranged with the precision of a military operation. That night, Olivia barely slept. She kept thinking about Julian's eyes, the sadness hidden behind his confident exterior, and the painting he mentioned. The couple dancing in the rain? She had painted it during her darkest moment, channeling all her loneliness into something beautiful, and now a billionaire was paying her to pretend to be his love. Life, it seemed, had a twisted sense of irony. The black car pulled through iron gates that seemed to stretch toward the sky. Olivia pressed her face against the window, watching as the Ashford estate revealed itself like something from a dream. The mansion stood proud against the evening sky. 3 stories of cream-colored stone with windows that glowed warm and golden. Julian sat beside her, looking sharp in a tailored charcoal suit. He had been quiet during the drive, occasionally glancing at her but saying little. The silence felt comfortable, which surprised Olivia. She expected awkwardness, but instead felt a strange sense of calm. "Nervous?" he asked softly. Terrified, she admitted with a small laugh. He reached over and gently squeezed her hand. The touch sent warmth up her arm. "Just be yourself. That's all I ask." The car stopped at the grand entrance. A butler opened the door, and Julian stepped out, offering his hand to help Olivia. She took it, and he didn't let go as they walked up the marble steps. The entrance hall took her breath away. Crystal chandeliers hung from high ceilings, and a sweeping staircase curved upward like something from a movie. Paintings lined the walls, real masterpieces that made her artist's heart race. "Julian, darling," an elegant older woman appeared at the top of the stairs. Grace Ashford moved with the grace her name suggested, wearing a beautiful lavender dress and pearls. Her silver hair was styled perfectly, but it was her eyes that caught Olivia's attention. Warm, intelligent eyes that seemed to see everything. "Grandmother." Julian released Olivia's hand to embrace the woman. "Happy early birthday." Grace kissed his cheek, then turned to Olivia with a knowing smile. "And you must be the young woman who has finally captured my grandson's heart." Olivia felt her face flush. "Mrs. Ashford, it's an honor to meet you. Please, call me Grace. Any woman brave enough to date Julian deserves to use my first name." She took Olivia's hands in hers. "Welcome to our home, dear. I've been waiting a long time to meet someone who makes my grandson smile like this." Olivia glanced at Julian. He was smiling, genuinely. Something about it made her heart skip. Shadows from the past the guest rooms were on the second floor. Julian walked Olivia to hers, carrying her small bag despite her protests. "Your room is beautiful," she said. Looking around at the elegant furniture and the view of the gardens below. "Mine is just down the hall, if you need anything," set her bag on the bed. "Dinner is at 7. Casual family gathering tonight. The big party is tomorrow." Before he could leave, a woman's voice called from the hallway. "Julian, is that really you?" A striking woman appeared in the doorway. Tall, blonde, wearing an expensive red dress that hugged her figure perfectly. Her blue eyes were cold despite her smile. "Rebecca." Julian's voice was flat, his body tensing beside Olivia. "I heard you were bringing someone. I had to see for myself." Rebecca's gaze swept over Olivia with barely concealed disdain. How charming. She looked so ordinary. Olivia felt the insult like a slap, But before she could respond, Julian stepped forward, placing himself slightly between them. Olivia is an incredible artist. She sees beauty where others see nothing. His voice was steel, which is more than I can say for some people. Rebecca's smile tightened. Still bitter about our engagement? I'm grateful it ended before I made the biggest mistake of my life. The tension crackled. Rebecca's eyes flashed with anger before she turned and walked away, her heels clicking sharply against the floor. Julian turned to Olivia, concern replacing his anger. I'm sorry. I should have warned you about her. Your ex-fiancée? Olivia guessed. He nodded, running a hand through his hair. She's here because her father does business with my family. I didn't know she'd come. What happened between you two? Julian was quiet for a moment. I caught her with someone else 2 weeks before our wedding. Turned out she was more interested in the Ashford name than in me. Olivia saw the hurt he tried to hide. Without thinking, she reached out and touched his arm. I'm sorry that happened to you. He looked at her hand, then at her face, and something shifted in his expression. Thank you for being here, Olivia. I know this is just an arrangement, but having you here feels right. The family dinner was held in a dining room that could seat 30 people. Olivia sat beside Julian, trying not to feel overwhelmed by the crystal glasses, silver cutlery, and the watchful eyes of the Ashford family. Grace sat at the head of the table, radiating warmth. Beside her was a younger man who looked like a sharper, hungrier version of Julian. His eyes kept darting between them with poorly hidden jealousy. You must be Henry, Olivia said, offering a friendly smile to Julian's brother. The spare heir, Henry said with a bitter laugh. Nice to meet the woman who captured the golden boy's heart. Tell me, how much is he paying you? The table went silent. Julian's fork clattered against his plate. Henry Grace's voice was soft but firm. What? We're all thinking it. Brother Dearest suddenly shows up with a girlfriend nobody's heard of, right when you've been pressuring him about marriage. Seems convenient. Olivia felt her cheeks burn. Julian started to stand, but she placed her hand on his arm, stopping him. She looked directly at Henry, keeping her voice calm. Julian isn't paying me anything except the gift of getting to know him. Maybe if you spent less time being bitter and more time being kind, you'd understand why people are drawn to your brother. Henry's face flushed red. An older woman across the table, Victoria Lang, let out a delighted laugh. Oh, I like her, Julian. She has spirit. Grace smiled, raising her glass. To Olivia, for bringing some honest words to this table. The tension broke, and conversation resumed. Under the table, Julian found Olivia's hand and squeezed it. When she looked at him, his eyes were full of gratitude and something else she couldn't name. A moment under the stars after dinner, Julian found Olivia on the terrace. She stood at the railing, looking up at the stars scattered across the dark sky. Thank you for standing up to Henry, he said, joining her. He was being cruel. He's always been like that. Jealous of everything I have. Olivia turned to face him. Is it lonely? Having so much but not knowing who really cares about you? Julian's expression softened. Yes, very lonely. They stood in comfortable silence, the night air cool around them. Then Julian spoke again, his voice quiet. This weekend with you, it's the first time in years I've felt like I could just breathe. Be myself, without the pressure of expectations. Olivia's heart squeezed. Julian, this is just pretend, remember? He looked at her, and in the moonlight, his eyes were intense. What if I don't want it to be? Before she could respond, Grace's voice called from inside. Julian, dear, could you help me with something? The moment shattered. Julian stepped back, looking almost embarrassed. I should go. Big day tomorrow. As he walked away, Olivia touched her lips, wondering what would have happened if they hadn't been interrupted, and terrified by how much she wanted to find out. Tomorrow was the birthday gala. Tomorrow, they would have to convince everyone they were in love. The problem was, Olivia wasn't sure they'd be pretending anymore. Saturday evening arrived with golden light flooding through the windows. Olivia stood in her room, wearing the emerald green gown the stylist had brought. The dress fit perfectly. It's making her feel like someone she barely recognized. Beautiful. Confident. Someone who might actually belong in this world. A knock on her door made her turn. Julian stood in the doorway, wearing a black tuxedo that made him look impossibly handsome. But it was the way he looked at her that stole her breath. His eyes widened, his lips parted slightly, and for a long moment, he just stared. "Olivia," he breathed, "you look absolutely stunning." She felt her cheeks warm. "The dress is doing all the work." He crossed the room until he stood before her. "No, the dress is just fabric. You make it beautiful." He reached into his pocket. "I brought you something." He pulled out a small velvet box. When he opened it, a delicate silver necklace sparkled in the light, with a small pendant shaped like a paintbrush. "Julian, I can't accept this. Please. I saw it and thought of you, of your art, of how you see the world differently than everyone else." He moved behind her, gently lifting her hair. His fingers brushed her neck as he fastened the clasp, sending shivers down her spine. "Perfect," he whispered near her ear. The grand celebration, the ballroom blazed with light and laughter. Over 100 guests filled the space, all dressed in elegant clothes, drinking champagne and celebrating Grace's 80th year. Olivia felt Julian's hand settle on the small of her back as they descended the grand staircase together. All eyes turned to them. Whispers rippled through the crowd. She heard fragments of conversations. "That's Julian Ashford with his new girlfriend. Nobody knows who she is. She's beautiful." Grace stood near the center of the room, radiant in a silver gown. When she saw them, her face lit up with genuine joy. She made her way through the crowd, taking both their hands. "You two look wonderful together," she said softly. "Julian, I've never seen you this happy." "Olivia, thank you for bringing light back into my grandson's eyes." The words touched something deep in Olivia's heart. This wasn't about money anymore. This was about a grandmother who loved her grandson and wanted him to be happy. The evening passed in a blur of introductions and dances. Julian never left her side. His hand stayed in hers, warm and reassuring. When the orchestra began playing a slow song, he led her to the dance floor. "I don't know if I can dance in these heels," she admitted. "Just follow me," he said. Pulling her close, they moved together naturally, as if they had danced 1,000 times before. Olivia rested her head against his chest, hearing his heartbeat steady and strong. Around them, other couples danced, but she barely noticed. In that moment, the world narrowed to just the two of them. "Olivia," Julian said softly, "I need to tell you something." She looked up at him, seeing conflict in his eyes. "The painting. The one I mentioned at the cafe. The couple dancing in the rain. What about it? I didn't just see it in a magazine. I own it." Olivia's steps faltered. "What?" Julian guided her off the dance floor to a quiet corner. 6 months ago, I went to a gallery opening in Chicago. I was there for business, feeling empty and alone. Then I saw your painting. The couple dancing in the rain, completely lost in each other despite the storm around them. I stood in front of it for an hour." Olivia's heart pounded. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I bought it that night for $50,000. And when I found out you were struggling, when I learned you might lose your apartment, I thought maybe I could help. But I knew you'd never accept charity." The truth hit her like cold water. "So you invented this whole arrangement? The fake girlfriend story?" "At first, yes. I wanted to help you without damaging your pride. But Olivia, everything that's happened this weekend, everything I've felt, that's all real. The confrontation." Olivia stepped back, her mind spinning. "You lied to me? This entire thing was built on a lie. I gave you a chance to survive when you had nothing left. Is that really so terrible? You made me feel like I was helping you when really you were pitying me." Tears burned her eyes. "I don't need anyone's pity, Julian. It wasn't pity. It was admiration. I saw your talent, your strength, your refusal to compromise your art, even when you were drowning. I wanted to give you space to breathe." Rebecca's voice cut through their conversation like a knife. "How touching. The billionaire and his charity case." She stood nearby, clearly having overheard everything. Her smile was cruel as she raised her voice so others could hear. "Everyone, did you know Julian hired this girl to pretend to be his girlfriend? The whole thing is fake." Gasps echoed through the ballroom. Guests turned to stare. Olivia felt the weight of hundreds of judgmental eyes. Grace appeared, her face stern. "Rebecca, that's enough." "But it's true." "Ask them, go ahead, Julian. Tell everyone the truth." Julian's jaw tightened. He looked at Olivia, then at the crowd, then back at her. "Yes, I hired Olivia initially, but not for the reasons you think." He took Olivia's hand, despite her attempt to pull away. "I hired her because I saw something in her art that I'd been missing in my life. Honesty, passion, the courage to feel deeply in a world that teaches us to be cold." His voice grew stronger. "What started as an arrangement became something real. Every moment with her this weekend, every laugh, every conversation, showed me what I've been missing. She challenges me. She sees through the money and the name to who I really am." He turned to Olivia, his eyes pleading. "I know I started this wrong. I should have been honest from the beginning. But Olivia, nothing I've felt with you has been fake. You make me want to be better. You make me believe I deserve to be happy." The choice Olivia looked at him, seeing the vulnerability in his face. Around them, the ballroom was silent, everyone waiting for her response. "You should have told me the truth," she said quietly. "I know. I'm sorry," but she continued, feeling tears slip down her cheeks. "I understand why you didn't. And Julian, nothing I felt this weekend was fake either. When I held your hand, when we danced, when you looked at me like I was the only person in the world, that terrified me because it felt too real." Hope flared in his eyes. "Then give us a chance. Not as part of a contract or an arrangement. Just as two people who found something unexpected." Grace stepped forward, her voice carrying across the room. "Life is too short for pride and fear. I'm 80 years old today, and the only regrets I have are the chances I didn't take. Don't make the same mistake." Olivia looked at Grace, seeing wisdom and kindness in her eyes. Then she looked back at Julian, at the man who had given her a chance when she had nothing, who saw value in her art and in her heart. "One condition," Olivia said. "Eat anything. No more lies. No more arrangements. If we do this, we do it honestly." A smile broke across Julian's face, genuine and beautiful. "I promise. Complete honesty from this moment forward." He pulled her close and kissed her. Not for show, not for the crowd, but because in that moment, nothing else mattered. The ballroom erupted in applause, but Olivia barely heard it. She was lost in the kiss, in the feeling of finally being exactly where she belonged. When they pulled apart, Grace was crying happy tears. Even some of the guests who had been judgmental moments before were smiling. Love, it seemed, could win over even the coldest hearts. A new beginning, 3 months later. Olivia stood in her new art studio, a bright space Julian had helped her find in downtown Chicago. Her paintings lined the walls, each one more confident than the last. The success of her recent gallery show had established her as an artist to watch. Julian appeared in the doorway, carrying coffee and wearing jeans and a sweater. He looked relaxed, happy, more himself than the tense businessman she had first met. "Your grandmother called," Olivia said, wiping paint from her hands. "She wants us to come for dinner next weekend." "She loves you more than she loves me now," Julian teased, pulling her into his arms. "That's because I'm more charming." He laughed, kissing her forehead. "You are. You're also incredibly talented, brave, and the best thing that ever happened to me." Olivia looked up at him, seeing the truth in his eyes. What had started as a desperate arrangement had become something neither of them expected. Real love built on honesty and trust and the courage to take a chance. "I love you," she said simply. "I love you too," he replied. No contract needed. And as they stood there, surrounded by her art and the life they were building together, Olivia knew that sometimes the best stories begin with one brave yes to the unexpected. The millionaire had indeed refused to lose her, but more importantly, she had refused to lose herself in the process. Together, they had found something more valuable than money or status. They had found each other. The end.